Did you know that a single trip could cost you everything you've achieved in the United States? Even if you have your green card. Even if you've never committed a crime. This is exactly what's happening to many people who leave the country confident that they'll be able to return without any issues, only to face a harsh reality at the airport. The rules have changed. No warning. No second chances. Today, you'll learn about the 10 new USCIS policies that are catching even longtime residents of this country off guard. These are rules that now require you to prove you still have the right to live here, or you could face the very real possibility of being denied re-entry. This video is not an exaggeration or a wild guess. This is happening right now, even if no one has told you about it. Stay with me until the end, because one of these rules could show up in your life at any moment, and if you're not informed, it could be too late. Picture this. You've been out of the US for a while. Maybe you've been in Mexico taking care of your mother, or dealing with a health issue back in your home country. 6 months go by. You think, alright, it's time to go back home. But here's something many people don't know, and almost no one talks about. If you stay outside the US for more than 180 days, you could be putting your permanent residency at risk. And the most alarming part? This can happen even if you entered the US legally, with all your documents in order. That's right, just carrying your green card isn't enough anymore. Immigration authorities could decide that you've abandoned your US residency. Think about it. If you're gone for over 6 months, they begin to question whether you're actually still living in the United States, or if you've already settled elsewhere. And that's when the problems begin. When you try to come back, an immigration officer will decide whether you still qualify as a resident. And here's the thing, it can happen right there at the airport. You, exhausted from your trip, dragging all your luggage, thinking they'll just check your passport and let you through, but no. They might stop you and start asking a series of questions. Where is your current residence? Do you have a job in this country? Do you have an active bank account? Are you handling your taxes properly? And if you can't give solid answers, or worse, if you have no way of proving them, they might start a legal process against you, which could lead to losing your green card. I get it, it sounds alarming. But this is how the system works now. And many good, honest, hard-working people are being caught off guard. So, if you have a green card and are planning to leave the US for an extended time, you need to be aware of the time limits. If you plan to be away for more than 6 months, you must prepare. You'll need evidence that your home and your life are still based in the United States. Because it's not just about looking like you live here, it's about proving that you still have a real connection to this country. This is one of the biggest changes that's shocking many people. And the scariest part? Most find out when it's already too late. So before you pack your bags, take a breath, get informed, and stay with me until the end of this video. Because what comes next might surprise you even more and save you a major headache. Let's keep going. Now, pay close attention to what I'm about to tell you, because this is one of those things almost no one talks about, yet it could completely change the course of your life. Let's say you have a green card, okay? Then you decide to travel to Mexico to visit your family, or maybe to take a well-deserved break after working so hard. Up to this point, everything seems fine. But when it's time to return to the US, things can get complicated. Why? Because just having your green card no longer guarantees smooth re-entry. The immigration agency, USCIS, has begun demanding concrete proof that you're still a habitual resident of the United States. And it's not just about what you say. They want documents. What kind of documents? 3 in particular. Write down these names, because they could be your key to re-entry. A valid driver's license. An active bank account. Up-to-date tax returns. That's right. If you don't meet these 3 criteria, you could face a long interrogation at the airport. The officer might stare you down and ask, "Do you really live here?" Because people who truly reside in this country pay taxes, drive legally, and maintain active bank accounts. And if you can't show dated, verifiable documentation, you could be denied entry. Maybe they'll let you in, but they could open a file or make a note on your record. And that, my friend, could make it harder to renew your status, or worse, put your permanent residency in danger. Let me ask you this. How many people do you know who travel without a worry in the world, thinking everything is under control just because they have the green card in hand, without realizing that not having a valid driver's license could land them in trouble? Well, I'm here to reveal the reality to you. Because clinging to old rules no longer makes sense. The system has changed, and those who don't adapt to the new rules will find themselves caught in a bad situation. So, if you're about to travel outside the United States, even if it's just for a few days, make sure right now that these 3 documents are up to date. This could be the difference between coming home peacefully or facing a situation no one wants to go through. Let's keep going, because the next rule is even more subtle, yet it leaves many people speechless. It's one of those regulations that may seem insignificant but can ruin everything. And the worst part? Most people don't even realize it. Did you know that, even if you already have your green card, you could be considered as someone who has abandoned the country if you don't have a stable address in the US? That's right, it's not an exaggeration. USCIS has made this crystal clear. Having a physical residence inside the country is one of the main ways to prove that you still live in the US, that this is your home and your life. And be careful, it's not enough to just use your cousin's, aunt's, or a friend's address just to make it seem like you have a place to stay. It has to make sense. The immigration officer can verify the information you provide. They might check whether you have accounts registered under that address, if you receive official mail there, or if you have documents linking you to that location. The logic behind it is clear: if you truly live there, then there should be a concrete address tied to your daily life. It's not just about where you sleep, it's about where you get your bills, where you pay rent or a mortgage. If you don't have that, then where do you live? And if you don't live in the United States, how can you justify your legal resident status? That's the real issue. The trouble begins when many people travel to see loved ones, help someone, or undergo medical treatment abroad, and they overlook this important detail. When they return, things get complicated. Sometimes, the officer might let you in, but they'll leave a warning in your file. And that's when the nightmare starts: renewing your document, justifying your absence, or even facing deportation proceedings. That's why, if you have a green card, there's something you must be very clear on: your place of residence isn't defined only by what your document says, but by what you reflect in your day-to-day life. So, before you leave the country, ask yourself these questions: do I have a stable residence? Am I officially linked to that address? Would I be able to prove I truly live there if asked today? If the answer is no, then it's time to get your affairs in order, because that one detail that seems minor could be what determines whether you keep or lose everything you've achieved so far. Stick with me, because the next rule hits you straight in the wallet, and many people only realize it when they're about to board the plane. This might be one of the most surprising and dangerous rules for those who think all they need is to show up. Did you know that immigration authorities can now check your bank activity to determine whether you're still allowed to enter the United States? That's right. This isn't some conspiracy theory or a rumor from someone's cousin. USCIS has access to information that shows whether you're still active in the country, and one of the ways they verify this is through your bank account. So, what are they looking for? Simple. They want to see activity, that you're earning income, paying bills, using your card, and making deposits. All of this indicates that you're actually living in the US. It's not just about having a green card, it's about being active, involved, and connected to the U.S. economic system. Let's reflect on this together. If you've been out of the country for several months and your bank account remained inactive, no income, no transactions, no withdrawals, what do you think immigration will assume? To them, this is a clear sign that you left your life behind in the U.S. Even if that wasn't your intention, when the time comes, what truly matters is the evidence. And that evidence is already in the system. There's no way to hide it or spin it any other way. Many responsible, hardworking people who left temporarily to care for someone or go through a difficult time in another country return thinking everything will be just like before, only to face tough questions upon re-entry. And it all boils down to one simple thing: having a bank account with no funds. So, if you're planning to leave the country or you're already abroad, take note, keep your account active. Make some payments, carry out a few transactions, show that you're still tied to the U.S., even from afar. Sometimes, a small transfer or a monthly charge can make a big difference when your situation is being reviewed. USCIS is no longer focused only on what you say. Now, they pay close attention to what you do. And that, my friend, goes far beyond simply having the right paperwork. It's in your hands to maintain evidence that you're still connected to life in the United States, because if you don't, when the time comes to return, they might say, "We're sorry, but all signs show that you've already moved on." Let's move on, because the next rule affects something most people overlook, but it has become a real risk for those trying to come back. Now we're going to talk about a regulation that hits your finances directly, and it's causing many people to trip without even realizing why. Do you have a green card? Then this is something you need to know. If you're not filing your U.S. tax return, immigration authorities might interpret that you no longer live in the country. That's right, even if everything else seems fine, this can affect you. USCIS has a clear logic: if you live in the U.S., you contribute. Every resident is expected to work or receive some kind of income. And if there's income, there's an obligation to report it. If you neglect this, the system may start to see you as someone who simply vanished. And that's something most people don't realize. When you return to the U.S. after a trip, an immigration officer might ask you to prove you've met your tax obligations. They might request documents, and if you hesitate or can't provide them right away, your tax status could become a problem. And I can already guess what you're thinking: but I was away, I didn't work this year, so I had nothing to report. But here's the key point: even if you didn't earn income during that time, it's highly recommended to file a tax return anyway. That way, you're showing that you still have tax responsibilities in the U.S. It signals that you still have ties to the country, that you're still part of the system. It's like saying, "Look, I didn't leave anything behind, I just didn't earn income, but I'm still here. I'm still fulfilling my responsibilities." Now, imagine someone who spent 8 months abroad, didn't file taxes, had no banking activity, and no stable address. How do you think immigration authorities will interpret that? So file your tax return as soon as possible. This isn't just about fulfilling a financial duty, it's also a way to protect your legal resident status in the United States, to keep everything in order, and avoid trouble when re-entering the country. Don't skip this step. File your return, keep your receipts, and have them ready in case they're requested, because when you're standing in front of an immigration officer, what you say or feel doesn't matter. What matters is what you can prove. And now comes a rule that ties directly into everything we just discussed, because it revolves around a simple question, one that can change your path in a matter of seconds. Let's go straight to it. Even though it sounds basic, this question has already caught more than a few people off guard. Where do you live? When returning to the U.S., this seemingly harmless question can become the start of serious trouble if you don't have a clear answer, or worse, if you don't have the evidence to back it up. The immigration officer doesn't just stamp your passport. They pay close attention to every word you say, how you react, whether you project confidence, and whether your story matches the information in front of them. And when they ask, "Where do you live?" they're not satisfied with a general area or city name. What they're really looking for is a clear sign that you actually reside there. Because if you hesitate when speaking, give too many explanations, or mention an address at random without even knowing the zip code, that raises a red flag. They start wondering, does this person really live here, or are they just using this address to maintain legal residency? Then comes what we already mentioned in previous rules: having documents is crucial. These serve as proof of what you claim. It could be a utility bill in your name, a rental contract, a letter issued by your bank, a bank statement with that address, any document that says, yes, this is my place of residence. The question is simple, but the answer must be properly backed. And what if you can't prove it? The officer could add a note to your file, send your case for further review, or even initiate a procedure to revoke your resident status. And that, my friend, is not something that can be resolved quickly or easily. And do you know what's most unfortunate? Some people lose everything over a wrong answer or because they assumed they would never be asked that question. So the advice is clear: prepare as if you're going to a crucial interview. Know your address in detail, have something to support it, and don't take this lightly. Because sometimes, a simple, "I don't remember exactly," can cost you everything you've spent years building. Now, let's move on to the next rule, which involves a mistake that might seem insignificant, but could lead to serious consequences, including deportation. Let's take a look. If your green card has already expired or is about to expire and you're considering leaving the country, whether to visit loved ones, handle a personal matter, or simply enjoy a vacation, you need to pause and reconsider your plans. The rules have changed, and now they are being strictly enforced. In the past, traveling with an expired permanent resident card often went unnoticed. The officer would barely glance at the document, ask a couple of questions, and allow you to re-enter. However, that has changed. Immigration authorities have received specific instructions: anyone carrying an expired document may be detained, subjected to review, or even face deportation proceedings. Look, I understand how the reasoning goes, but I've been living here for years. I've never had any problems. I go and come back quickly, then I'll take care of it. However, USCIS logic isn't based on how long you've lived here, but on legal proof and specific dates. If your green card has expired, you no longer have legal resident status, and that's where the risk comes in. You could be denied re-entry. You might be sent to secondary inspection, taken to a waiting room, and interrogated, and that's not an exaggeration. Some people have spent hours detained at the airport, missed connecting flights, entire trips, and were even mistreated, all because they assumed that an expired document was a minor issue. But it's not. So, what should you do if your green card is about to expire and you need to travel abroad? The answer is simple: begin the renewal process before you leave the country. Even if the process takes time, you can request proof that you've initiated the renewal, an official receipt with the USCIS seal. That document already serves as evidence that you're taking steps to regularize your status. The key is not to leave the country with an expired status and no documentation to support your situation, because if you do, you're taking a big risk, and you'll be the one dealing with the consequences. You'll lose time, compromise your dignity, and in some cases, you could even jeopardize your right to remain in the United States. That's why you should check your green card right now. Look at the expiration date. If it's coming up soon, don't wait until it's too late. Before we continue, let's look at the next rule, which refers to something many people consider unnecessary to prove, but which today has become a formal requirement. This provision is especially sensitive, as it appeals to our emotional side. Many people live in the U.S. as permanent residents and, due to circumstances beyond their control, must return to their country of origin: a sick parent, a deceased mother, a sibling who had an accident, difficult moments that demand closeness, support, and care. And naturally, when something like that happens, bureaucratic paperwork is the last thing on your mind. What matters is being there for your loved ones and doing what's necessary. But that's exactly where the problem starts. When returning to the U.S., immigration doesn't want to hear touching stories. What they demand is concrete evidence. The recent USCIS regulations are clear: if you were out of the country for more than 6 months and the reason was personal or family related, you must present official documentation that supports the reason for your absence. It's not enough to say, "My mother was sick." They will require a medical certificate, a clinical report, hospital records with dates, names, and signatures. If it was a death, they will ask for the corresponding death certificate. If it was a surgery, you'll need to present the medical report. Everything must be properly documented, with real and verifiable data. Because, according to them, if you were absent for an extended period, you must back it up, and not with verbal explanations, but with official paperwork. And look, it's not that they distrust you personally, this is simply how the protocol works. Officers follow established procedures, and if you don't have the appropriate documentation, they might interpret that you left the country without a valid justification. That alone already puts your resident status at risk. So, if you're currently outside the U.S. due to an emergency, or if you've returned after going through a similar situation, get moving, obtain the documents, request the proof, make the necessary translations, and carry everything well organized with you. Because if you're questioned, you need to be ready. Is it tedious and impersonal? No doubt. But this is the current reality, and we must learn to navigate the new rules of the game. Let's continue, because the next rule is even more alarming, a kind of hidden list of risk profiles being used to block certain residents from re-entering. And you might be on it without even knowing it. This rule works as a silent warning that almost no one knows exists, but it could be affecting you right now, without you realizing it. USCIS has created what is essentially an abandonment profile. That's right. They're applying a new risk evaluation method to identify those who, in their judgment, may have abandoned the United States, even if they never formally declared it. And how do they do it? They compare information, examine behavioral patterns, and piece together scattered fragments of your life. Have you spent long periods outside the country? Do you lack a stable residence? Have you failed to file tax returns in recent years? Is your bank account inactive? Do you not have a valid driver's license? Are you not listed in any recent economic activity? All these elements, when combined, form a profile. And if you match that profile, even if you hold a green card, you could be seen as someone who voluntarily left the country. Here's where it gets more serious: no court process is necessary. The immigration officer, right there at the airport, has the authority to start a procedure, record your situation, or even deny you entry. People arrive thinking they'll just get a passport stamp, and suddenly they're facing a system that already sees them as an unwelcome presence. I know it's not easy to hear this, but it's the truth. And if we don't say it clearly, people will keep getting unpleasant surprises. The good news is that you're still in time to change your situation, if you take action now. Reactivate your bank account. File your tax return, even if you didn't have income. Make sure your address is updated. Renew your personal documents. Gather evidence that shows you still have ties to this country. Because the issue isn't just complying with the law, it's about proving, through actions and evidence, that you're still an active part of life in the U.S. The next, and final, rule wraps all of this up perfectly. It's the rule of either you prepare, or you may be left out. Let's get into it. If you've already bought your ticket, told your loved ones you're leaving, or your suitcase is almost packed, this recommendation is for you. Because now, with all these changes, USCIS has started suggesting a formal travel protocol for those with permanent residency in the U.S. And listen closely, this is no longer just a recommendation, it's an unspoken requirement. If you ignore this checklist, you're exposing yourself to a real risk of leaving and not being able to return. Before, what did people do? They handed over their green card and passport, got a goodbye kiss at the airport gate, and everything seemed fine. They trusted they'd return later. But today, the situation is different. Nowadays, you must travel as if you were preparing for an official appointment with the government. Because, in many ways, that's exactly what awaits you upon return. So, what should you have with you? Any document that proves you still reside in the United States. Documents showing your current U.S. address. Bank statements showing recent activity. Copies of your income tax returns. Your valid driver's license. Paid utility bills in the U.S., like water, electricity, or phone. And if you were gone for an extended period due to family matters, medical certificates, death certificates, or other documents supporting the reason. These papers should be gathered and well organized, preferably in a folder, with clear dates and names. Because if you're stopped or questioned at immigration, this will be your shield. It's not about what you say, it's about what you can prove. So the rule is clear, do not leave the country without being prepared. If you have a green card, if you want to keep your legal status intact and avoid complications, prepare this personal file before traveling. Let me tell you something to close this conversation with the respect you deserve. Your stay in the United States isn't based solely on a card with your name on it. It depends on how you prepare, how you position yourself, and how you protect your status. And although many won't tell you this, here, we speak plainly. We address this topic responsibly because our community deserves to be well informed. So if this video was helpful, I invite you to do the following. Turn on the notification bell, because in the coming days, I'll be sharing important updates that could make a big difference for those residing legally in this country. Here, you'll find information presented with seriousness, clarity, and a true commitment to you. See you in the next video. Take care, and travel with foresight.